Nairo Quintana will renew with Team Movistar for the 2025 season. News that may have surprised many of you, since during 2024, the Colombian rider has only been able to gain 233 UCI points, and has only been seen at a good level in the Livigno stage of the Giro d'Italia, where a monstrous and aberrant Slovenian alien Poggi ended up crushing him in one of his greatest exhibitions this season, fully dressed in pink. But beyond the physical performance, there's also the human warmth factor, something about which the Movistar team friars know an awful lot. Remember that, despite the problems, they said goodbye with hugs to a doped as Coconut Oil Lopez, and they welcomed back Quintana after a year in which the UCI had vetoed the Colombian from signing for any professional team. Now this video is a fresh, new exclusive from your Uncle Cycling Highlights, just like the one we gave you about the adverse results in the biological passport of the Portuguese cyclist Frederico Figueiredo, something which has been confirmed 50 days later by the Portuguese press. And so, this latest story, you can believe it or not, but I can insist, nay, I can assure you that it is a sad reality. Nairo Quintana was extremely close to taking his own life in Colombia during the year 2023. He was the victim of an absolutely horrible persecution campaign by the illustrious Selfie Lappartient, the president of the UCI, who's full of spiel and patter about security, but who already is leaving a trail of dead cyclists behind him, including the recent tragic, avoidable death of Muriel Führer, who, according to Luc Greff of Lanterne Rouge, did have GPS installed on her bike at the time of her horrible fall. And despite that, none of Selfie Lappartient's subordinates could find her at the site of the fall until more than an hour and a half later. Now, to that horrible casualty list, may they all rest in peace, well, we could have seen Nairo's own name added, since we've never seen Selfie pursue a cyclist as he did the Colombian. This is a tragic story, thankfully, with a happy ending, and all thanks to the will of Nairo himself, who, I hope that from now on you will applaud him, all of you will applaud him, every time you see him pedalling on a mountain pass. Now, subscribe to the channel for more content, and of course you can follow us on our Twitter account, @UncleCycling. Now let's travel back in time, specifically to 2021. That was the year that Nairo Quintana's Arkea Samsic team suffered a police raid, at the same time as Bahrain Victorious were paid a visit. Now, in the raid, the doctor of Nairo and the Colombian cyclist of the team, Freddy Alexander Gonzalez Torres, was arrested, and tools for injecting doping substances, as well as doping substances without medical prescriptions, were seized. The trial against this Colombian doctor was to be held in September 2024, but it has been postponed, so we still do not know exactly what happened on that day. But be that as it may, from then on, Quintana became the main enemy of Selfie Lappartient and the UCI, and at the time that may have made sense, for Nairo continued to be part of the Arkea team and was improving his results, since in the 2021 Tour de France he was unable to shine. He managed to win some minor French races, had a top 5 in Paris-Nice and the Volta Catalunya, and then in July he achieved a notorious 6th place in the Tour de France, where he finished 2nd in the Col du Granon stage. Now granted, he was more than 16 minutes behind the winner of the Tour, the Danish anchovy, because he's always a Dane, Jonas Vingegaard, and almost 14 minutes adrift of the Slovenian alien Poggi. However, soon came the controversy. Nairo became Tramadolito Quintana, since he tested positive for Tramadol, an opioid which, according to Quintana, he was taking to relax back pains that he'd been suffering from for years. Now, this news was known the same week that the Vuelta a España 2022 was due to start. Quintana was registered with Arkea, but as soon as the news broke, the team not only expelled him from the Vuelta, but also from Arkea itself, breaking his contract and ripping up any clauses that would have allowed him to continue riding for additional seasons with the team. Tramadolito had become a dirty doper for most of the French, from his director, Emmanuel Hubert, to the doper and doping director of doped cyclists, Roger Leger, president of the Movement for Credible Cycling. Both were extremely harsh on Nairo for taking Tramadol, claiming that no team should sign him and that his career was over, that he was a dirty liar who had cheated the poor Frenchman of Arkea who had trusted him. A disgusting ploy by the dinosaur Leger and his friend Hubert to try to save the arse of the French Breton outfit. The same one that now wins stages in the Tour with riders who suddenly improve their performance by cutting out Nutella from their diet. However, Nairo Quintana's biggest problem was with the UCI president himself, Selfie Lappartient. The infamous selfie-loving French mayor had banned Tramadol in 2019 after Brian Cooksson's epocha as UCI president. The marginally profitable Sky team had given Tramadol to virtually all of its riders to relax and improve their performances. Coincidentally, Selfie was springing into action after forgiving the White Kenyan Froome for his positive for salbutamol during the 2017 Vuelta a España, and after the crash that had wiped the scrawny African cyclist off the map, somewhere that he continues to dwell to this day. But no, instead, Selfie uses him for racing for peace, to clear Israel's name. He disqualified Tramadolito Quintana from the 2022 Tour de France and stripped him of all UCI points earned in La Grande Boucle, and he threatened all World Tour and Pro Continental teams that they would suffer consequences if Nairo signed for any European team during the 2023 season, something that almost happened with Team Corratec, where he was very close to signing. But a call from Selfie Lappartient threatening that they wouldn't race the Giro d'Italia if they signed Tramadolito was enough for them to withdraw the offer and leave Tramadol's John Hancock in fresh air. Why so much animosity from Selfie towards Nairo? The answer is simple. It's prime Selfie. The guy who only sanctions average-level cyclists in the World Tour wanted to make a point towards WADA, since the World Anti-Doping Agency did not have Tramadol on its list of doping substances. That a substance like Tramadol was on the list of banned substances of the UCI, but not of WADA, is absolutely despicable, an absurd lack of equitable criteria. But Selfie puts the laws where he wants and according to how he wants them to be enforced, in his particular sense about the fight against doping, which seems to be based on taking selfies with cyclists who crush records of, so far, the biggest dopers in history from the 90s and 2000s. In 2022, Nairo was enjoying the best phase of his career since 2019, but then he suddenly disappeared. He was only able to compete in the Wollongong World Championships with his national team and the Colombian National Championships in January 2023, where we saw an extremely fragile Nairo burst into tears at the chants of the fans when he took the podium as third-place finisher. It was in those moments when he was at his worst, on a particularly bad day, that he came ever so close to losing his life at his own hand. He could no longer find meaning after so much French bullying and after so much persecution from Selfie Lappartient. This we have been reliably informed by sources very close to the rider. Fortunately, his family and close friends and some Spanish World Tour directors helped to pull him out of that abyss of mental depression. And little by little he's been able to return to normality, signing, albeit at a salary much lower than previously, for Movistar, his lifelong professional team. He's done so in exchange for, of course, not only racing without Tramadol, but also to go practically paniagua, as clean as can be. He knows that he is the most watched rider in the peloton, and he will not make any more mistakes. However, he has continued to suffer harassment from several Sky riders, such as Wout Poels, insulting him in the middle of the Volta Catalunya, or the Welsh alcoholic Geraint Thomas, one of Poggy's best friends, we hear. He said in his dirty podcast that Tramadolito Quintana should not have been allowed to compete in the Giro d'Italia 2024, despite the fact that in the previous decade, Thomas was most likely pumped up on Tramadol prescribed by the sanctioned doctors Freeman and Linders. I hope that after watching this video, boyo, you will apologise to Quintana A person who has shown that you can escape from the darkest thoughts that a person can have, with the right kind of support and the right kind of will, and yet you were seemingly happy to want to sink him again. Well, Uncle Cycling Highlights won't sit back quietly and allow that. Not at all. Not you, Thomas, and certainly not you, Selfie. I hope that's perfectly clear, les gars.